A friend of mine recently reached out to me and said, I think that we need to be talking as a society about how Trump could potentially get a third term. Not just dismissing it and saying there is no way he's going to be able to do this. This is a distraction. This is this. This is that. We should be talking about the ways that he might be able to circumvent the Constitution and get a third term. I replied to that friend of mine by saying there is no, shy of a constitutional amendment, which isn't going to happen. There is no mechanism for him to be able to run and get a third term. There are mechanisms for which he could become president again in 2029, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is something that my friend encouraged me to do a piece on, and I went out searching out some of this information, and obviously there are mechanisms. I don't think it's going to happen still, but let's watch this and then talk about it.
The book actually begins with the fact that both Hamilton and Jefferson feared a president who would overstay his term and refuse to leave office. And Hamilton's solution is a president elected for life, so he won't be tempted to subvert democratic elections. Jefferson's solution is a one-year term limit for the president, so he won't, be tempted to run again. In the end, amazingly, James Madison and some others favor a life term for the president. That fails, and they choose to have no term limits. But for the rest of American history, people are worried about exactly this, a president who would refuse to leave office. The 22nd Amendment is passed in 1947 after Franklin Roosevelt breaks the two-term limit and runs for 4 terms. And the goal is, it says explicitly, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. That seems as clear as it could be. Now, as President Trump said, there is this workaround. He called it too cute, but the literal text would allow the president to run as someone else's vice president to get elected, then have the president who was elected be resigned, and then he could take the office by secession rather than election. He ruled it out there and said it was too cute, but the text would allow that. Short of that cute workaround, it's very hard to see how you could get around that textual limit. So we might find ourselves in exactly the situation that Hamilton and Jefferson feared, with a president extending his term and unconstitutionally refusing to leave.
Senator, is it constitutional for President Trump to run for a third term? He's teasing that.
If you read the Constitution, it says it's not. But if he says he has some different circumstances that might be able to go around the Constitution, but that's up to him. We got a long way to go.
But you're open to it.
Well, I think that there's going to have to be an evaluation from President Trump's viewpoint to the Constitution. There'll be a lot of legal aspects to it. Will it happen? It's very unlikely, but don't ever close the book on President Trump.
So let's talk about this. First of all, he would be 82 years old when he assumed office for his third term, if that were to be the case. If he ran as somebody's VP, they won as a ticket, and then that president quit, and Trump became president. That would be, he would be in his early 80s. And that's assuming he's still alive. Not from a nefarious standpoint. He's 79 years old and eats Big Macs every fucking day. I'm just saying, that's the first thing we need to take into consideration. The second thing we need to take into consideration is, I know that this is something that a lot of hardcore Trumpers would be like, fuck yeah, man, let's do this, right? J.D. Vance is going to run for president. Trump's going to be his vice president. And we all know that when they win the ticket, that J.D. Vance is going to resign and Trump's going to ascend to the presidency. We all know that there are a group of hardcore Trump supporters and folks like Mr. Tuberville there that would probably be like, all right, let's run with it. But I have to think that the bulk of the American people would be like, okay, this is insane. This has gone on far enough. We're not doing this. Technically, can it get done? Yes. Shy of a constitutional amendment, and I've been digging into this ever since having this conversation with my friend here, I have been digging into what are the actual possibilities of him being able to run for a third term, and this is the only path I can see. Shy of there is one other path, and that would be if Congress, if the House of Representatives voted him to be Speaker of the House after a Republican ticket won the presidency and vice presidency and resigned to elevate him from there. But I understand a lot of people have sacrificed their dignity, their careers, and their reputations on the altar of Trumpism, but you really got to be willing to be forever known as the fucking cuck who ran for president just so that they could resign so Trump could get a third term. I have to think that this is all so far out of the realm of possibility that it's ridiculous. Then again, I didn't think anybody was going to be dumb enough to vote for Trump to begin with, so I thought that was out of the realm of possibility. But Americans sure showed their stupidity a few times so far when it comes to politics in the era of Trumpism. So anything's possible, but therein lies the two scenarios I can possibly see him ever getting a third term. If he wins on a ticket where he's the VP, knowing that the president is going to resign. And once again, you got to be one hell of a fucking sacrificial lamb to be able to be somebody that's going to be willing to do that. And I got to think that the American people are going to go, really, this is what we're doing? And come out in force to prevent that from happening. But there are two paths for him to be a president for a third term, and those are the two paths. Now, I think the most likely scenario is that he does something leading up to the election. Institutes martial law, gets us into a military conflict, something to where he says we can't have a transition of power. We are in too unstable of a time right now, and he just refuses to leave. In which case, we would once again find ourselves in unprecedented territory, and we would see what our country is truly made of. Is somebody going to go in and drag him the fuck out after his term is up, or are they just going to let him stay in there? I think we're going to head into some really ugly territory if he survives the next 3 years. And that's a big if, because it does appear as if he has some health problems that might make all of this moot.